Okay, here we go. So this is my video for Unit 3, which is Clothing and Textiles in Newfoundland Culture. Isaac is here. You'll probably hear him as we've said, my colleague. He's making a craft while I do your video. So I had intended on doing this on Screencastify so that you could have myself and then our Google Slides presentation next to it. But I have a MacBook here at home right now, and Mac products don't like you using Google add-ons, so it wouldn't work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the notes and the things for the unit, and then you can have it open because, of course, YouTube will run while you have other things open. So what you're going to see under this post is the Google Slides presentation of the notes, a note booklet which has some things there that would have been under your Think, Pair, Share stuff in a regular booklet.
It looks beautiful.
It does look beautiful, sweetie. He's making a butterfly.
Butterfly.
And then you're also going to see the pattern for your beverage cozy, and then 4 videos for knitting. One for casting on, one for knitting, one for casting off, and one for finishing. Now I know a lot of students are wondering, well, how do I do this? Is this going to be like assessed or things like that? I don't have that answer right now. All I know is that I'm giving you everything that we would have done for the unit and putting it on the Google Classroom. If you have knitting needles at home and you want to knit, awesome. If you don't worry about that right now, okay? So, all right, Unit 3. I don't know what is happening with assessment right now, like I said, but if it happens the way that it would have, portfolio would be 20%, your product profile assignment, which is also going to be on underneath this post as well, would be 30%, and beverage cozy project, the knitting piece, which would be 50%. That's if things are happening that way. I don't know. All right. So first thing I want you to think about is, like, what are some products that are made here? So, like, what do we know that's made here in this province? So, like, I can think of things like seal products. Now, I know that's one of those things that some people don't want to talk about because some people have very particular views about fur, and this has been like a point of contention for a while, but it is something that is made in our province. Other things that are made here, there's I think what people call fishermen's sweaters or knit sweaters are made here. Think of some brands that are made here as well. We have a lot of new brands coming out from our province, even in our own area, like Wave Apparel. Figgy Duff Dory is another one that I have seen on Facebook. There's a lot of local companies that are making clothes, which is great. A lot of downtown businesses too making things, like Nonya, which has been around for over 100 years, which is awesome. Mod Cloth is another one that's downtown. Okay. This is it. Teaching from home. You're hearing my 4-year-old. All right. So anything that you could think of. There's a lot of products that are made here in this province. All right. So the first thing there that I have under Think, Pair, Share, again, if evaluation's happening the same, this will be portfolio stuff. How is the clothing and textile landscape different in this province today from generations gone by? So, like, think of your grandparents or even your parents. How did they shop for things? Did they shop for things? Was their clothing made for them? Did they order it from a catalog? Did they buy it locally? Now, a lot of things are either bought at the mall or we buy them online. That didn't used to be the way that things were. People would order from catalogs, Sears, Eaton's, both companies no longer exist. Or people would have things made for them specifically. at local tailors. Also, a lot of things were handed down. My mother is the youngest of 3. She had hand-me-downs, clothing from her sister and from her brother. You reused things. Instead of going up and buying something new, you bought something you used something belonged to another family member. So that's something that you can write down. Like, how do you know the things have changed? What do you think has changed? So there's a lot of methods of making in this province. Some examples are sewing, hand and machine, tailoring, quilting, spinning, knitting, crocheting, rug hooking, tatting, tufting, net making. Like, what's all these things? Rug hooking, some people know from art class. Tatting and tufting are made with actually fur. There's, like, they would actually use like a needle or a hook, the same as with rug hooking, but instead of using yarn or thread, they would use pieces of fur. Net making is a method of making, like making fishing nets. It's a form of knitting. I had a student a couple years ago who that's what he did for his knitting project. Instead of making the beverage cozy, he actually knit me a lobster pot hit. And that was knitting, because it is knitting. Cross-stitching, embroidery, smocking, applique, tapestry, weaving, leatherwork, hide preparation, and beading. Another think, pair, share there that you can do for your portfolio is, have you learned a method of making from anyone in your family or community? Has anyone in your family learned a method of making from someone in their community? So I've learned things from family members. I learned how to knit from my mother. I learned how to sew with a sewing machine from my aunt. You've learned how to do some methods of making from family members, I'm sure. You've learned from a community member because you've learned from me. So what methods of making have you learned from people in your family or your community? There's some organizations and businesses that are in this province that are important to think about. The Women's Institute. The WI is actually set up in different chapters all over the province. And their goal is to preserve methods of making and different traditional cooking methods throughout this province to preserve our province's history. Hold on a second. There we go. Rug Hooking Guilds of Newfoundland and Labrador. The Anna Templeton Center. Anna Templeton was a nurse, actually, and she was an avid knitter. And there's actually a center in St. John's dedicated to her and all of the things that she made and all of her patterns. So a lot of the things that I get my ideas from for us for knitting for class are actually from the Anna Templeton Center. One of the things that we did a couple years ago, because we had the time, was knitting something that was called Rickhouse wristers, which are fingerless gloves. Came up across here and came down here, cut off here at the thumb and at the bases of the fingers. Those mittens, per se, without fingers or thumbs in them, are actually very useful for keeping your hands mostly warm, but having your fingers still dexterous. I wear them when I'm driving my car a lot. The Newfoundland and Labrador Craft Council, which is in St. John's. The Grenfell Mission Store, which is in St. Anthony. Nonia, which is also downtown. I already mentioned they specialize in knitted and woven products. And Always in Vogue, which is our local fur store. The Grenfell Mission Store we'll talk about a little bit later as well, thanks to Dr. Grenfell. Influences on our culture. So the presence of different ethnic groups influences the clothing and textile landscape. So the indigenous groups of this province. The European settlers who came here throughout our province's history. Livyers. Livyers were the first people who were born here and decided to live here all year round. So back in our province's history, people would come here from Europe to fish and then would go back. But the people who decided to live here became our first people other than indigenous people. in this province. And they were called livyers because they decided to live here. Okay. And then, of course, our most recent immigrants from other countries. Excuse me. I can close this, yes. There you go. The climate and ways of life has also influenced our clothing and textile landscape. We live in a very cold, windy, wet place. So what we wear is dictated a lot of times by our climate. We're not going around wearing shorts all the time or short sleeve shirts. Most of the year it's very cold and we have to dress for that. Indigenous influences. So indigenous groups of our province are the Beothuk, which are now extinct, the Inuit, Innu, the Mi'kmaq, and the Southern Inuit, formerly the Labrador Inuit Métis. Some products that are influenced by or attributed to the indigenous people of our province are embroidery and beadwork on coats and bags, furs, rugs, sealskin apparel, snowshoes, tea dolls, and tufted products. Now, if we were in class, I'd be able to show you some things with tea dolls, but unfortunately I can't do that from home. I don't have the images. They're in the clothing lab, and now we're not allowed in the building. Excuse me, buddy, you can't get in front of the camera, not while I'm doing a video. Thank you. What's interesting with beadwork, indigenous people have beads often made out of bone, and then beads were then being made out of glass. They didn't have thread. The way that something was beaded was done with sinew. You might know what that is. Sinew, in case you don't know what that is actually fibers made from caribou intestine. So beads would be sewn on to coats and hats and boots with caribou intestine. Interesting. Some people, when I tell them that in class, like, ew. But they used what they had. Indigenous furs that were most prevalent in this province was seal and caribou. You'll see an image there of an Innu bonnet of beadwork. These are glass beads and done with thread. The thing is with the sinew is eventually it breaks down because it's a natural product. So most things now that were made with sinew are no longer in great shape. So the image that you'll see in your Google Slides presentation is done with thread. Once European settlers came here, things were traded, so they gave indigenous people thread so that they could continue their beadwork with a different type of product. There's also an Innu women's bonnet there that's done with beautiful embroidery, very, very detailed. And it's all done in what we would consider, of course now, satin stitch. There's a picture there of sealskin boots. Two different things. What we call sealskin boots now are actually seal fur. Sealskin boots are something different. It's the hide with all the fur taken off. So it looks like skin because it is. So all the fur is taken off, same as with leather. But it's prepared a little bit differently. They are waterproof. When I taught on the Northern Peninsula, a lot of kids and teenagers and adults still use these. We don't see them as much on the East Coast, but they're very, very popular in Labrador and on the Northern Peninsula. Then there's an image there of caribou fur boots. A lot of people wondering, like, why are they the most prevalent? Because that's what was here. Caribou are native to our province. Moose aren't. Moose were introduced by Europeans and people from the United States. There's a Mi'kmaq cloth coat from the 1800s. They're beautiful. It comes down, huge hood with fur, and then comes down really long in the back to cover your bum and your legs, keep you really, really warm. What's interesting now, the Canada Goose Company is now having Indigenous people design some of their coats because they know how to design them in a beautiful way and also in a very practical way to keep you warm for our climate. The this cloth coat, the reason why it has such a large hood is because it's trapping that heat in from your body and keeping it around your head. You get baby wearing coats. A lot of women would have these that the hood actually came from the lower back to completely cover a baby in a carrier on the woman's back and up over the baby's head and the mom's head. A friend of mine who lives in Iqaluit, a lady made it for her, and it's absolutely beautiful. So our European settlers, the first European settlers to come to this province were Isaac. Remember, stay out of the camera, please. The first European settlers of the province were English, French, the Basque, and Portuguese. There's actually a part of St. John's that's considered to be what's called Little Portugal, because there's so many Portuguese people were in St. John's for a very long period of time. There's not as prevalent of a Portuguese population here in the province, but there are still a lot of Portuguese people and people who are descendants from Portuguese people. And people from Portugal are the reason why we have so many different fish dishes. Fishermen from Portugal came here to fish cod, and they made a lot of wonderful recipes from that. And depending on who you're talking to and who you ask, there are many people who will say that is Portuguese people who created the concept of salt fish. These groups influenced the livyers who continue to live here all year round. There's a dress there that you'll see. It's a livyer's dress from the 1800s. All of the purple and blue there is embroidered. There's also a leather apron there that would have been made from caribou leather or possibly seal leather. Climate and life influences. A fisherman knits sweater, or what's referred to as a cable knit sweater. This pattern of sweater is considered to be very desirable. Newfoundland wool is very thick and very warm. And the way those sweaters were knit became very desirable for many people of Europe and people who were coming over to North America because they were so warm. An interesting thing about wool, about natural wool, is that when it gets wet, it gets warmer. It generates heat when it's wet. So this is the reason why fishermen would end up wanting a sweater to wear, is because they get wet out on the water and it helps keep them warm. Salt and pepper caps, a lot of people have those. Trigger mitts, which are mittens that have a finger and a thumb. So you see a shape over 3 fingers, 1 finger, and the thumb. Why is it called a trigger mitt? For having use of your index finger so that you can hunt and use a gun. Socks, or some people call them vamps, knit socks. And tartan. You'll see there, the image there are the Newfoundland tartan and Labrador tartan. 2 important historical events that I have profiled in your notes are the Grenfell Mission and the First World War. Sir Wilfrid Grenfell is a doctor from Great Britain who sought to create better health care and a better life for rural people of our province. First started as a summer mission with a ship of doctors and nurses. And what he did was he realized that a lot of people in this province didn't have proper health care, especially in Labrador and on the Northern Peninsula. So he wanted to bring people over to help those people. So he had a hospital ship. The Grenfell Mission provided some of the earliest permanent medical services in Labrador and in northern Newfoundland. It was through Dr. Grenfell that the first hospital was built in a place called Battle Harbour in 1832. It was thanks to him that a lot of the first hospitals were then built, and schools and community centres in those areas. So a lot of people in this province have him to thank. We wonder, well, how did he manage to do this? What he was able to do was raise money to get those things built. So he would go back to Europe, or he'd go down to the States, and he would sell items that were made by people in this province, use that money to make things. for our community. So improvements to quality of life were like building of schools, community farms, stores, lumber mills, and then the handicraft industry. So remember I mentioned the Grenfell store. The Grenfell store still exists in St. Anthony. You can buy beautiful coats. They were very, very popular. Isaac has one that belonged to my husband. We still have one that belonged to myself as well that I got as a child. And it has beautiful embroidery on the pockets. And it has fur around the hood. Keeps your face warm. Traditionally, it would be either fox fur or caribou fur. Beautiful coats. They would also, at the Grenfell store, have hooked rugs that were made by local craftspersons, which you'll see on the next slide is an example of a hooked rug. They would dye scraps of fabric. Sometimes it was even like stockings. And dye it in all different colors to create beautiful scenes. So local craftspeople and mission volunteers were recruited to sell their crafts and textile products to the rest of North America to raise money for their efforts. There's still a Grenfell Mission store in St. Anthony, and some textile products include hooked rugs, coats, mittens, and slippers. Hooked rugs are something that was created with a practical purpose, to keep your feet warm on a cold floor. Those items then eventually transformed into pieces of artwork. People saw it as something that was beautiful and should be hung up rather than stepped on. There's actually a beautiful exhibition at the Rooms a few years ago of all different types of hooked rugs from history, which was really nice that I got to see. The other historical profile I wanted to share was World War I. Newfoundland and Labrador was greatly affected by World War I, with men joining the Newfoundland Regiment, the Merchant Marine Corps, Church Lads Brigade, etc. We, of course, still have a Church Lads Brigade here in CBS. Many women were involved in the Women's Patriotic Association, which then evolved into the Women's Institute, the WI. These women created care packages, including knitted socks, and made bandages to send overseas. So the image that you see is actually all of these socks that were sent in these care packages. Remember what I said about Newfoundland wool earlier? It's very desirable. Those socks were knit with natural Newfoundland wool and knit in a very, like say, thick, chunky way that kept people's feet warm. Soldiers from other places would want to trade for the Newfoundlander socks because they knew that they were the best socks to keep away trench foot. Wonder what's trench foot? If you don't know, it's when your feet rot because of being in the trenches. There's a big thing in the army about keeping your feet dry and warm. If your feet were ever wet or cold, your feet could rot. And that's what it was called, as trench foot. So people really, really wanted the Newfoundlander socks because they kept trench foot away the best. So, fun fact. Not really. So there's some pictures there. Private's uniform for the Newfoundland Regiment in World War I. There as well that you could see down the bottom is their blue puttees, which puttees, of course, were protective long socks to go right from the boots to the knee, and usually in other armies they were green or brown, but the Newfoundlanders had blue ones. So I wanted to add, there's a link attached to this post for a virtual tour of the rooms. I encourage you to look at it, especially if you have an interest. Well, it's specific to actually the war exhibit, to have a look at it because it's really, really interesting. I've had the chance to bring students there in the past. Right now we can't go out, so why not go there virtually? Okay, so that's everything with the notes for this unit. You'll see it also attached to this post is the Think Pair shares, which you could do for same as what would be portfolio work. The Newfoundland product profile with the instructions are also here. Basically what you're doing is answering some questions about a particular product that is made here in this province. And then, of course, the knitting. Try some knitting. If you have knitting needles at home and you have wool at home, If you don't have it, don't go out and get it. It's not an essential thing. But if you have those things at home, why not knit to pass the time? Learn something new. So I have knitting handouts, knitting videos, all of those things there for you. Some really interesting stuff, especially like if you're a person like myself who's interested in history. I'll be posting again with some things for the first unit of Textiles as well. Until then, take care of yourself, wash your middies, and get out there and enjoy the sunshine.